French President Emmanuel Macron is visiting Cyprus this Monday as France deploys warships to the Mediterranean following a drone attack on the island, which is an EU member. Macron will be meeting both the Cypriot President and Prime Minister. Cyprus was targeted last week by Iranian-made drones, resulting in the French leader to order the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier to the Mediterranean, along with a frigate and air defence units to Cyprus. And joining me in the studio is our International Affairs Editor, Kethevane Gorjestani. Kethevane, what sort of message is the President trying to send with this trip?
Well, look, according to the Elysée, the first main message is a show of solidarity with an EU member state, the only EU member that was directly targeted by a drone attack. The goal of this is to show that the French are standing side by side with Cyprus. That's part of the message, but the other part is goes beyond Cyprus and beyond solidarity. It's also a way to sort of symbolize the show of force. You mentioned the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier, the frigate Languedoc that is off the coast of Cyprus, the ground-based anti-drone, anti-missile defenses that are placed now on Cyprus. All of this is also to show that France is militarily present, that it is showing its military might in the region, whether it's to help Cyprus or also to sort of defend French and other partner interests. So these are really the two big messages. A final one is also a show of sort of cooperation more broadly among Europeans, because not only will Macron be meeting with his Cyprus counterpart, but also the Greek Prime Minister will be there. The Greeks have sent 4 F-16s to the island. They have also sent 2 frigates. There are also warships from Italy, Spain, the Netherlands that are getting close, and the UK is also sending a destroyer that should arrive next week. So this is also a way for Europe to show that it is not sort of left aside in this war. And there's also the question of the security in the Red Sea, beyond the Eastern Mediterranean, the Red Sea, and this Operation Aspides, which is an EU operation to make sure that there is security in the Red Sea at this moment.
Now, yesterday, President Macron spoke to his Iranian counterpart, Masoud Pezeshkian, and urged a halt to strikes on other countries in the region. I assume this is France trying very much to avoid further escalation.
Yes, and there's been a very big diplomatic push by Emmanuel Macron over the past 24 hours. The latest we've heard is that this morning, before flying out to Cyprus, the French president had a call with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But yesterday, as you said, he spoke to Masoud Pezeshkian, where he urged the stop to those strikes, also insisted on guaranteeing the freedom of navigation. This is, of course, about the Strait of Hormuz, which is very important to the global economy. And we've been talking about oil prices. That's very important. And the response or the statement that came out of the Iranian president's office was pretty strong. If you look at what he he cautioned France and any other countries involved in this conflict that any action, be it offensive or defensive, aimed at supporting the aggressors of our country, so Iran, would be considered a participation in the war. And that is partly what Emmanuel Macron is also trying to do when he calls or talks with the Iranian president, and with everything that he's been doing, this military show of force, is to insist that this is all strictly defensive, that the military deployment is strictly about defending French interest and French partner in the region. You had one example of that earlier last week when there were these contradicting informations about the fact that the U.S. would be allowed to use French bases in the region in this war, and the French army came out and denied this and insisted that the only base that they were allowed to use, the Americans, was a French base on French soil and strictly non-launch pad, if you will, for strikes on Iran. So all of this is a way for Emmanuel Macron to try to avoid this escalation, to get the message across to the the Iranians especially that if France is involved militarily here, it's really to defend its interest, not that they want to look at striking Iran or getting involved in this war, that the French and more broadly the Europeans have not wanted to get dragged in and were a little bit dragged in by the Americans and the Israelis. And this flurry of diplomatic activity continued throughout yesterday. Besides the Iranian president, Emmanuel Macron spoke to the U.S. President Donald Trump, as well as the leaders of Iraq, Qatar, Azerbaijan, Egypt, Kuwait, Bahrain. All of this is to avoid that escalation.